All right. We are here live doing a special call in segment of NDZ Live. We've never done this before on NDZ Live. So this is pretty cool. Connor, Kaloya, thank you for joining us. Uh, before we get into the big news of the day, we've got to ask you what you make of the recent Forward Madison results. Are you happy with the performances and where the team is on the table? What's the talk in the back room like with the coaching staff?
Yeah, I think generally, well, first of all, gentlemen, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Call-in show, so I'll say first time, long time. So glad to be on with you tonight. Yeah, but as it relates to Ford Madison, I think I think early on here, I think there's a couple games that we the result ended in a draw where we think we probably should have won or could have won. But on a whole, I think we're encouraged, right? We're the last team in the league without a loss. I think Saturday's performance was extremely encouraging from start to finish, both sides. Offensively and defensively. I think we're super encouraged to go to the best team in the league and walk away with a 2-0 win. So we're generally feeling positive. It's early. There's still stuff we need to improve on. We're going to start for better or worse, likely seeing some injuries here that we need to work through, and that's just kind of part of it. So 1-6 through the season, I think we're encouraged, but no, there's a long way, and no, we need to continue to get better too.
Sure. Um, Overall, have any of the sort of off season acquisitions surprised you as far as how they've been performing so far, or are they kind of living up to the potential that Matt built them for?
Yeah, I think so far the team is pretty much, you know, headed in the direction we wanted it to. We only have four returners from last year, so I don't want to say we're gelling quite yet, but I would say the team is working well together fairly quickly. As far as signings that we made, I think most are as advertised. I think there's a couple that haven't quite hit their stride yet, but we're feeling really good about the back line with Timmy Mel and Jacob Kroll and Mitch, and of course Sam Brotherton as well. And then I think you are seeing some more offense. I know we've got a few scoreless matches, but you are seeing some more offense, and so I think there's a couple of those guys on the on the up front that are a game or two away from really breaking out. They've had a lot of chances and just haven't quite done it quite yet. So, but I think generally the team is what Matt expected it to be. There's a couple folks, like I said, that we need to kind of get in gear a little bit, but generally we're going in the right direction.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask, just because I feel like he's been brilliant so far this season, is what you've been making of the captain Mitch Osmond's uh, appearances and his performance so far. This last game, I would argue, is probably one of his best in a Forward Madison shirt. Really high rating, really good stats. Scored a goal. I think that was that his first goal for Forward Madison. Like,
Yeah,
I believe
yeah,
so. Mitch, you can confirm, but
I can confirm that was
yes,
his first goal.
yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Overall, happy bringing Mitch back this season.
Yeah, Mitch is a true professional. I've had the good fortune of in the off season and uh, throughout the year just getting to know Mitch away from the pitch a little bit. He's got a son that's the same age as mine, and they like to play around at the stadium on match nights. And so I've got to know Mitch and his family. And Mitch is just a true professional, a great guy, and a good leader. And I think his transition from championship to um, League One and Forward Madison last year, um, I think it took him a while to kind of understand the difference, or I don't want to say understand, but just acclimate to the different level of play. And he dedicated himself in the off season. I think worked harder than he's ever worked in an off season. Came into training extremely fit, and has just done a great job. And instead of he's doing well on the pitch, but I think he behind the scenes, I would say he's doing just as well or better as a leader. Um, in the locker room, and the last thing I'll say as it relates to Mitch, I mean, every time we had a signing, Mitch would be the first guy to call. And you know, I don't think maybe in his past roles as a leader, as he did he normally do that. And here he wanted to make sure everybody felt welcome from day one. From the minute they stepped foot in Madison, they felt welcome and connected to the club. And he's really done a great job of setting a good example.
Perfect. So let's get into it. I mean, obviously we could chat all night, but the real reason for having you on tonight is the big news today, the exciting news, the sort of announcement of pursuing a spot on the Super League roster of teams, I guess, in the second wave of teams to join this new women's hopefully first division league put on by USL. You've mentioned to us before, both privately and publicly, that a women's team has always been part of this ownership group's plans. How does it feel to start publicly making those plans a reality?
Yeah, it's great to just kind of get it moving. We've got a path. We know what that path is. I think we've got a great partner in the city of Madison, and Mayor Rhodes Conway has been extremely supportive. And so, yeah, today was an exciting day. And since we started Forward Madison in 19, since we launched, we hoped it would be 3 to maybe 5 years to bring in a women's club here. Obviously, we didn't expect a pandemic. There's been a lot of changes in the landscape of the women's game over the last 5 years. And now I think we found the right league and the right time to try and bring women's professional soccer to Madison. So we're just excited. I mean, something we've been working on, as you guys know, for 3 years now, and we're excited to just kind of have it out there and have a clear path of what we need to do, and have a league that we've secured a membership in, and just kind of get moving on it.
Sweet. We're going to go ahead and welcome our first caller to the show, John Lowry, frequent Flock and Capo, Ford Madison stalwart, as it were. John, did you have a question for Connor about the new women's side?
It helps if you unmute.
Hey, yeah, thanks for the assist on that. Yeah, mostly super pumped. I think it's going to be great for the community. I think it's going to be great to have additional stuff going on at Breeze and all that. I guess my kind of questions are, you're going to be real busy as an ownership group in the next couple of years, what with, forwards probably a little bit more stable now, but with the Milwaukee project going on and now this, fully announced and going on, how's the balance going to be trying to keep all the plates spinning?
Yeah, good question, John. I appreciate you being here, and always appreciate your continued support of the club. Our Madison ownership group, which is led by Jim Kazmarek and myself, Vern Stemmen, and Steve Schmidt, that will be the initial ownership group of the women's pro soccer, Madison Women's Pro Soccer. We do think it's important that we add some local female leadership to that ownership group, so we will get help from an ownership standpoint. As it relates to the Milwaukee project, our entire Madison group is not necessarily involved in that at this point. It's just Jim and I. And so, I think the focus of our Madison group has been Madison and will continue to be Madison. And the key to scaling these things, we did it on the baseball side a few years ago where we had 4 successful Northwoods League teams across the state: Green Bay, Wisconsin Rapids, Kenosha in Madison. Obviously different than what we're doing here from a soccer side of things. But the key is finding good people, hiring good people, and keeping them there. And we've been fortunate to have a really strong core in our Madison office for a long time of kind of our key executives and key folks, both on the sales and finance side. And we'll have to continue to scale the business and make sure that we have good leaders. We made it clear today that the women's team needs women's leadership, female leadership, both on the pitch and off the pitch, in addition to female owners. And it's we've already started that process to kind of identify key pieces, key personnel that would lead that club. And that's really what will make the team successful. What makes these clubs successful is more the employees and the operators than it is the ownership. And so we'll make sure we have good operators in each of these businesses.
Cool. Good to hear it.
Now, John, I know it's a call-in show, so you normally ask questions to us. I don't ask questions back, but do you always wear that Lakers hat, or is that just kind of fashionable the last couple of weeks?
It only comes out on game days. I try not to mix sports. So when I'm at Breeze for forward stuff, I try not to come in with any European soccer, any other sports that might, create divisions. When I'm there for forward, I'm there for forward and all that. But no, I've been a Laker fan since I grew up. I'm LA originally. So
Awesome.
fun fact, same high school as Timmy Mel, as far as I know.
Nice.
I was going to say, you grew up in Pasadena, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
good luck
depends
to your
on how
Lakers
you
fan.
break down the amalgamation of cities that are all Los Angeles, but still LA County.
Oh,
not
Pasadena is absolutely part of Los Angeles. There's no question.
Yeah.
Carson, debatable.
Carson, debatable. If you get out to like Thousand Oaks, you're definitely really pushing it.
Yeah. Connor, I had a question. So why now? Is it just the timing of the Super League being announced, or something else that's kind of driving the decision to kind of make? I mean, obviously, if the Super League's launching, they're going to want a slate of clubs to talk about. But like from an ownership perspective, from a big top sports perspective, like why is now important strategically?
Yeah, it's been something that we've studied. I think since I should take a step back. The landscape of women's soccer has been something we've been watching since we started Forward, but we've really been studying over the last 3 years, trying to find the right opportunity. If you go back to kind of when Forward started, we started looking at men's pro soccer, and I think in like 2015, and we didn't announce a club until 2018. So we did essentially 3 years of homework, and that was a really transformative time in the lower divisions of men's pro soccer. Right at the time, there was the PDL. There was not, USL Championship was not yet second division, if I recall, when we first started looking. And USL and MLS were working together. So at one point, we were really close to joining the PDL. We pulled back, decided we wanted to do professional on the men's side, not college. NISA and Peter Wilt at that time had come about. And then we also had discussions to potentially partner with Minnesota United on a second team for them. So we kind of let, the process, but let the landscape play out a little bit. We did something similar on the women's side. Until today, your only point of entry on the pro side was really the NWSL. Madison's a great market. We've got a good ownership group. We don't have $53 million to put into an expansion franchise. This market, unfortunately, just won't support that. Right. We looked at the amateur level, and in speaking with our supporters, and our supporters made it clear that if we were going to have a men's professional team, they wanted a women's professional team. And so we just kind of had to wait for the right time, the right league. And, we feel that it's advantageous to be on the front end of a league as opposed to come in down the road. We think, being one of the inaugural teams to be in the league, hopefully we can help kind of shape the league and develop strong partnerships with the other owners. And so we think it makes sense to be on the front end as opposed to letting this play out and join a couple years later.
Hey, Connor, other than, the challenges that you brought up today with like trying to establish the funding to get, make the stadium adjustments that are needed to make this happen, what do you see as the biggest challenge moving forward? Is it the schedule? Is it the market size? In your opinion, what would be the biggest challenge outside, once this gets up and rolling?
Yeah, I mean, candidly, it's a challenging business model. Professional soccer in the U.S. is a challenging business model. I would say out of 120 or so teams, I believe there's maybe 10 to 15 that are actually profitable. So, the model isn't totally figured out in this country yet. So, if we're going to compete at the first division, there is going to be significant expense, and we're going to have to figure that out on the revenue side, how we generate the revenue to support the club. So I think figuring out that model is probably the most challenging piece. I do think, we have a plan to figure that out. We are, like I mentioned, planning to bring on additional investors. Do hope to have strong corporate support and be able to compete in a market like Madison. So I have no doubts that Madison can compete with larger markets. That doesn't concern me at all. It's just figuring out the business model, which will be new to us, but at the same time, it's a business model that a lot of people are trying to figure out.
Cool.
So-
Go ahead, Mitch.
So the schedule that that the team would be that the Super League is talking is a fall to spring schedule, meaning that we'd be starting in around August and then going into the spring with a 6-week break in the middle. It sounds like. How is that going to work at Breeze Stevens during the winter months?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mitch. So the way we kind of see it is the players will report late June, early July. I think the hope would be that we can play some friendlies in the month of July. Regular season schedule probably starts mid-August, runs through December 15th, or early December, I should say. We've made it clear to the league, and as you guys know from following us for the first 5 years, the water gets shut off at Breeze on November 15th, so we won't be hosting after November 15th. The league will take a 6-week break and then resume training around February 1, and then resume gameplay around March 15th. At least that's kind of a rough sketch of what the schedule looks like. So really, if we're talking about home matches, we're looking at regular season August through November, which isn't too different than what we're looking at now on the forward side. Hopefully we can mix in a few friendlies in July. And then, on the spring side of things, we'd be looking at March 15th through late May. So once again, not a ton different. I mean, obviously, our best time to play soccer at Breeze is June, July, and August. But we have had success from a crowd standpoint in September, and do hope that we can create kind of a steady stream of games from March through October.
Excellent. John, any other questions for Connor before we kind of let you go and pull somebody else in?
Yeah, speaking for some of those, I know we're missing the coldest of the coldest months, but I've seen some deep snowfalls here in March and all that. Could we get some like mulled wine, some hot toddies, some warm drink options to keep people through on some of those?
You bring your shovel, I'll bring the drinks.
Can do.
So no, but yes, John, I think that's a good suggestion. We can work on that.
Cool.
Thanks, John, for joining
Thanks,
us.
John.
We are going to welcome Liam to the show. Liam, do you have a question for Connor?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, just pretty much kind of, you've been speaking about the research that you've been doing into this. Is there any clubs that have been kind of used as like a visualization or a template for what you're aiming to achieve here, like EPL teams, MLS teams, any of the above?
Yeah, Liam, it's good to see you, and I think it's important for those at home to know that essentially on this day, on the forward side, I think it was May 18th of 2018. Liam was there. Liam and Andrew were both there when we received approval from the city council to make pro soccer a real thing here in Madison. But yeah, who are we watching? I think from a strictly business side, let's just talk business. Portland has done a nice balance of the two franchises, and they have, if you look at both having a men's and a women's side, on the business side, they're the highest performer through both. As you look at just the women's game, I think what's happening in LA and San Diego is extremely impressive. We're not those markets. So we're going to have to figure out how we create our own thing. I think how Forward Madison became successful was kind of two things. One, it was the supporters and fans guiding us. But two, it was being different, taking risks, and having fun. And we can't just roll out another women's team that's going to be a template of the other successful women's teams in the country. We have to figure out, whether it be domestically or globally. We have to figure out how we be different, how we set ourselves apart, how we take bigger risks, and how we have more fun than what most people are having. So I'm confident with your direction from the fans. We can figure this out, but it's definitely got to be a different template than what's been seen in American soccer so far.
No, it's interesting you mentioned that. I have a probably a somewhat more loaded question for you. So the press release and the website FAQ calls out that this new women's side will not have the same name and identity as Forward Madison. So a sort of multi-pronged question here. Do you worry that it's going to dilute the standing of Forward Madison or cannibalize the fan base? I.e., are you operating a club or teams? And what would you say to people who have helped you build Forward Madison support and identity going forward with this women's team?
That's a really good question. We don't want to do anything that's going to do anything to take away from Forward Madison. And as we try and build a second brand here, or a second club, second team, I should say, we want to make sure that we don't lose focus on what's made Forward Madison great. I think part of kind of our goal here, is long term to create an environment at Breeze Stevens Field that supports two teams. And Breeze is in need of facility improvements for the long term. And there are certain things that we need to at the facility to make women's soccer happen. And I think those will provide a benefit to Forward as well. With that being said, there's only so many people in the market. There's only so many dollars. And so we have to present both teams in a way that we're not cannibalizing the other. As it relates to the brand of the women's team, we're going to work closely with the fans on that, and the fans are going to guide us. I think what we want to try and avoid is something as simple as just Forward Madison Women's and just go to market. I think it could be possible for both clubs to fall under the Forward Madison name, but I do think if we did that, it would be important for the women's pro soccer team to have a unique identity and a unique feel and some unique characteristic to it. But that's a conversation for down the road. The idea of supporting both and making sure that both are successful is something that we think about frequently, and we got to make sure we position both of the teams in a way that they can stand alone on their own, but also benefit each other.
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of brought that question up is sort of the model that a lot of clubs have the world over, right? Of like one club identity and having multiple teams and showing equity through that of, some kid grows up supporting one club, but they know they have a women's and a men's team, and it doesn't really matter which one they go to. They're cheering for both. I know, if I had to guess, you're probably saying, yes, that absolutely should be what it's like here. Do you think that's going to be tricky or difficult having two discrete identities for these teams?
Yeah, I'll shoot you straight, Andrew. We haven't totally figured out the right way to go to market on it. I mean, we've kicked around. I think not the supporters group meeting we had the other night, but we had one 6 months ago, and I think that topic dominated the conversation. And I think where we ended as a group was without an answer. So I don't know we haven't thought through we haven't landed on what's the exact right way to go to market from a brand standpoint. What the next 12 months look like for us in the next 90 days, I think 90 to 100, next 3 months to 6 months, you'll see renderings, more concrete plans of what needs to happen at Breeze to bring a first division women's pro soccer team. I think once we have that out there, then we'll start getting into the brand development, and we'll start engaging the fan base and kind of understanding what is the best way for these two clubs to work together.
Cool.
What do you guys think it is?
I think it's great. I think it's.
But what do you think is the best way to go to market?
Connor,
for myself, I think
a marketing degree.
What's that, Mitch?
It's not. I have a computer science degree, not a marketing degree. Not my job. Not my job,
I
buddy.
know it's my job, Mitch, but my point is that this isn't, Rome wasn't built in a day, my friends.
Sure.
We'll talk.
I guess
Sounds like
if
Grant's
you're
got an
asking,
idea, though.
yeah, I mean, if you're asking, I think I'm probably more in line with what Andrew was bringing up. Is I like the idea of a unified, just everything is Ford Madison. So, because I think that it's one of those things where I know, and I think we're probably biased here because of our love for European football and how they do it over there. The Arsenal women's team, they're just Arsenal. There's no distinction between how they're treated and how the men are treated. Now, I think that the difference here is that the women's team would be 2 leagues higher than where the men are, and you're not playing. If both teams are playing Premier League, top flight football, I think there's a discussion there too. But in general, I tend to lean more towards just everything being Ford Madison FC. So
Interesting.
I think there's also something to be said about the name of the team, Forward Madison. I mean, the statue at the Capitol building is Lady Forward, right? Like, seems kind of weird to have a team called Forward Madison here in town and it not being the women's team. But maybe that's just me.
I don't know, Liam, what do you think?
I see it both ways. Genuinely, I see that European style. I've watched both in terms of like that Arsenal component. It sits well with me, but also at the same time, we're not a European football team. We're an American football team, and we are trying to break ground here. We are trying to give individualism a chance. We're trying to create history here. And it's going to be how you empower people to use whatever branding you pick. It's how you set up that branding as a tool for empowerment and infrastructure and to be used as a lightning rod, like you have with the flock, like you have with all the collaborative parts you brought us in on. Forward Madison is great, but like when you don't talk to us about Forward Madison, you talk to us about the flock. But Forward Madison has always been a secondary part of that conversation. That's something like that. I think hopefully as you do set up that structure and you do set up that branding, that's a key component of those discussions. So I trust you. I've probably been one of your harshest critics, for better or worse. But like I see the faith that you've returned in us being manifested with the men's team, and I 110% trust and faith in what you do with the branding of this will be done in no different way to make sure it's the best product ever and the most successful club with teams under that club canopy.
Yeah, I tend to look at this from sort of a more practical perspective too, of like when I think of things, at least on the fan or the community side of things, it's always like 10, 20 years down the road. Right. And like, what do kids growing up now that go to games at Breeze, will they be confused by it? Probably not. But I look at like some clubs overseas, like from lower non-league level, like Lewis FC, who has true pay equity, true equitable like football at their club for both the men's and the women's side, and they're just Lewis FC. Same thing with a much higher level, Lyon or Olympique Lyonnais in France. True pay equity for their men's and their women's teams. Both are in the first division. It's less confusing for that fan base there, but this is also a club that's been around for over 100 years. So they've got that established, and their women's team hasn't been around as long, but they were, I think, the first club in the world to have true equity as far as pay, as conditions, all of that stuff. So I don't know necessarily that it has anything to do with an equity aspect of things, at least as far as history in the game is concerned. But I also know that we're a bunch of white guys who are trying to speak on women's soccer right now. And I don't want to entirely speak for that, but at the same time, I understand that like there is something to be said for establishing equity regardless of what your gender is. And I think women have an absolutely uphill battle in this country, especially as far as sports goes. Look at how sports works in this country for like the WNBA or you know what's soon to be hopefully the USL Super League's competition, the NWSL. It's not equitable as far as comparing to the men's side of the game, but I think whatever it takes to get it to equity, I think is important. I do think it's actually, you know, I mean, sort of as a somewhat of an aside, I think it's super cool that we're going to have a women's team here that's 2 leagues ahead of the men's team. And I would not have predicted that, you know, 5 years ago before Madison was on the scene. So I think that aspect is absolutely amazing. But that would be my one argument is kind of like, for simplicity's sake, for a city that is not historically a soccer city, like I think it's easier for people to understand the paradigm of a men's and a women's team under the same organizational banner, but it's not up to me ultimately. So I've shouted into the void enough for tonight.
It will be ultimately. I mean, not just up to you, Andrew, but we will turn this back to the fans.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the initial feedback we got was a little different than 4 white guys that like European soccer.
Right.
Hey, I don't like European soccer. I only watch USL League One. I want that to be known.
All right, Mitch, you're the man.
Yeah, and gentlemen, come on. I'm more brown than I am white. Let's go.
Yeah. Apologize. Bad lighting here.
Bad lighting there.
Next question.
Much lighter call or lighter question. For all the people on the call, if you could pick one active female player worldwide to bring in to this women's team 2 years from now, who would it be?
Roosevelt.
Yeah, it's tough to go a different direction.
I mean, duh. She played here.
Yeah.
She played at Wisconsin. Duh. I mean, that's game, set, match.
You want a way to get it butts in seats? Bring back the hometown hero, right?
Yeah. And she's from Cincinnati originally, so that's cool too. So
Rose Lavelle can keep her chocolate tinted chili with her spaghetti noodles. I would take Leah Williamson every single day of the week over Rose Lavelle.
good for you.
Zach's not listening to this call, by the way.
Yeah, I know. You literally just like threw shame on Skyline Chili. He's literally going to come after you now.
Oh, I'm sure he like senses it through the force.
Well, I'm gonna tell him after this too.
Good.
So
Good.
Yeah.
Good. How about you, Liam?
Yeah, I'm with the 2 boys. Go local, build the community, bring the community back.
yeah, how about that, Andrew?
They really
He
just
doesn't listen to me.
They'll really just let anybody in on these calls, won't they?
I'm diversifying your demographic. Fuck off.
How about you, Mitch?
Yeah, no, Rose Lavelle. Yeah. I mean,
Bunch of homers on this call. How about you, Connor?
We got tickets to sell, man. We got a cow. It's, you know, I hate to be. I think you're setting us up here a little bit, Andrew, but that would be, you know, down the road, that'd be a cool thing.
Andrew is setting himself up to be angry.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
I'm like that all the time.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, because you do this purposely. You self-sabotage the situation so you can just be angry about it and not be happy because you hate being happy. So
Ooh.
Look, we all.
Today should be a happy day for you, Andrew, and you're ruining it.
exactly, and you're ruining it.
You know, there's a lot of accusations going around. All I'm saying is that we maybe have WSL money for aging, you know, Leah Williamson.
That's true.
We don't have NWSL money, or that'd be the league that we're going for.
How old is Leah Williamson right now?
37. at least to my knowledge.
He's not 37.
Andrew, Andrew, can you do me a favor? Can you just lift up your glass there? Just lift your glass to the camera.
What's you talking about? Which glass?
Lift the glass with the beer in it. Oh yeah, not even half full. Thought so.
Yeah, well, you know, I've never been accused of being an optimist, Liam.
That's true. This is true. This is true.
Okay, so piggybacking on the previous question, what about historical women's players? Who would you bring in? And you can't say Rose Lavelle 10 years ago because all you motherfuckers are just thinking that.
I'll say
no.
Katie Taylor from Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. Katie Taylor, who she played like up until I think under 18, and then she switched to be a professional boxer. She scored a cracker 40 yards out screamer against Italy in the 10th minute, and then turned around and got sent off for a tackle in the 12th. Red card straight. Her.
That'll sell you tickets. Post-game boxing. I mean, yeah.
I'm gonna go with Mia Hamm.
Yeah, Grant, that's tough to overcome there. Andrew?
I'll go similar but different. Brandy Chastain.
Also a good choice, Mitch.
I'm going to go with former New Jersey Lady Stallions and Philadelphia Charge and Boston Breakers legend Kelly Smith.
Solid choice as well.
She is a master of the British Empire. I don't know what that does for you. Not much.
I was like, okay.
It's like getting your GED, I think.
I think that means yes to Liam, actually.
I'm like,
You get a sword or something?
Yeah, Liam just threw up.
Yeah.
In his mouth, just a little bit.
he's like, I gotta go.
All right. Any other questions for Connor, Liam, or for us, or insults for me? Apparently.
No, just appreciate everything as always, and the best of luck with the rest of these questions because they're not easy.
I did not share the questions with Liam. I'll put it that way. All right.
Thanks, Liam. Good to see you today. Thank you.
We are going to welcome Trevor to the show. How are you, Trevor?
This guy.
Shalom, shalom. How is everybody?
Who's this guy?
Yeah.
It's all gone.
Yeah, man.
Oh man.
Fresh.
Trev, how you doing?
I'm well. I knew that there was going to be a thing today. I messaged Mitch like 5 minutes ago and was like, "Is there a call today?" Like,
I told him specifically yesterday there is a call-in show happening tomorrow, and you should call in. You need
Here he
to
is.
be there.
There he
yeah.
is.
He told me, we're gonna have a special guest on. We're gonna talk about some stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, who's the special guest?" He said Connor, and I'm like, "Oh, I thought it was gonna be like Brandy Chastain or somebody like actually super special."
This was well, he asked who it was this morning after the news had already gone out. I want to make that clear. The news had already been released, and he asked, "Oh, who's it gonna be?" Like, "Oh, it's gonna be Connor."
That shows how much I pay attention to social media. Summer cut trip. Last Tuesday was a Jewish holiday, Lag BaOmer, and it's the one day in between Passover and Shavuot, which is on the 25th, where Jews are allowed to shave and get their hair cut. So I figured that was
I was gonna say, you're looking smooth, man. I mean,
summer cut Trev.
Yeah, three years ago on the same holiday was the last time I got my hair cut, so felt it was in need of a change. But I do actually have a question for you, Connor. Congratulations on bringing a women's soccer team to Madison. That's amazing. You mentioned partnering with local, like public and private benefactors in order to start getting funding on the ground. How is that going to involve other sports teams in the area, if you have an idea? I'm sure like Madison is also getting a professional volleyball team in the coming years. So I think with the growth of women's sports and the growth of popularity of women's sports, you could really reach out to other women's sports organizations, not just in Madison, but maybe you know, maybe a WNBA team can partner with you guys or something along those lines too.
Roller derby.
Yeah, roller derby is a lot of fun. Women's hockey, stuff like that. So I didn't know if you guys had a set goal or plan to like interact with other women's sports leagues in the area, or if you're just, this is so new, we don't exactly know what we're going to do yet.
Yeah, Trev, sorry that I'm not as special of a guest as you had in your mind, but nonetheless, appreciate you calling in. Love the new cut. Looks good. Yeah, I think. Listen, between the Mallards and Forward and some of the other ventures we've had over the years, men's or women's sports, we want to do what we can to help the sports scene in Madison. So if there's ways for us to work with the new volleyball league or other women's teams that come down the road, that's great. I think the comments today were pretty facility driven. As we work with the city to improve Breeze, it could be something where we do need to involve other partners to help make those facility improvements, to help fund those facility improvements, I should say. I think the other thing that we discussed today was the need for a full-sized indoor facility somewhere in the region. And I would say that region is currently underserved from that perspective right now, that we do not have the closest full-sized indoor facility is Rockford. And for a market of our size, it's pretty surprising that doesn't exist yet. I think there would be, I think there is a lot of youth organizations and other athletic organizations in the community that could be a good partner to help us get that put together. And I think to build a facility of that nature, an indoor facility that would be suitable for training for both the women's team and the men's team, there would need to be a partnership between multiple parties to put that together.
Yeah, that's essentially the answer. That is not essentially. That is the answer to my question. I'm going to be 100% honest. I haven't been on the call for the last 40 minutes, so I don't know what you guys have talked about.
Typical.
Yeah.
I'm calling you out. It's typical.
So I have a question for you, Connor. I mean, you've hinted at this a little bit previously. Speaking, specifically about Breeze and some of the facility improvements you've talked about already, the press releases mentions needed improvements to Breeze for a top flight women's side. This would largely be mandated by the Soccer Federation, but some of it would probably just be trying to make a better situation for these players. And for the Forward Madison players as well on the men's side. Can you share some of those sort of details? What can people who are current season ticket holders expect changes wise for match days at Breeze?
Well, yeah, that's a great question and something that we're putting the exact plans together to unveil at a later date. But just kind of a high level, there's really kind of three buckets of things that need to be done to make this team work. First of all, we don't have the infrastructure necessary to host a first division women's team. And by infrastructure, we don't have women's specific locker rooms. We don't have coaching facilities, video rooms, training facilities, athletic training facilities, I should say. We don't have any of that. And if we're going to compete at a first division level, we need that. Secondly, the turf at Breeze Stevens Field was put in 2014. The next, when those turf surfaces last 8 to 12 years. I know it wasn't used a lot in 14 when it was installed. It wasn't used at all in 2020. But by the time it's time to bring women's professional soccer here, we are going to need new turf. And then finally, to make a team like this viable, there does need to be more permanent, improved seating. On the flock end, but in other parts of the facility as well, that allows us to compete at the highest level. In order to compete at the highest level and actually have a competitive first division team, we're going to need additional seats and better seating offerings to generate additional revenue. So it's the focus is getting the facility up to the standard of the league, but we also need to make sure that the standard of the first division soccer. We also need to make sure when we do that, we do it in a way that allows the team to be viable.
Will there be other amenities that come along with that, Connor, such as like more suite space, or like I think you mentioned that like the seat, like they got covered end and the flock end and things like that, and then like the removable seats there. Are there just more amenities that like people will be able to have and expect with the stadium experience?
Yeah, I think those are details, Grant, that we'll get into down the road. But I think it's safe to say, as we approach this renovation, we look at it as a 20-year plan, not a 5 and a 10 and a
Right.
even 15-year plan. When we launched Forward Madison, if there's one regret that we have, this might sound bad, but we weren't sure it was going to work. And so a lot of the renovations we made were kind of 1 and 3 year renovations. They weren't 20-year renovations. And now over the last couple of years, you've seen the investments we've made. Those are 20-year renovations. The Forward Club, the new video board.
Right.
Those are investments in the facility, knowing that we're going to be here for the long term. And that's what kind of this next wave of facility investment needs to be.
Very cool. Very cool.
What I've got one more question, sort of ones that we added to our show notes. Given that the Super League's aiming for first division sanctioning, has there been any consideration at all? I mean, obviously it's a couple years away, but like you're probably going to have players playing for this team that are going to get national team call-ups. Are are there any initial ideas of or planning around how you're going to handle stuff like that? These are good problems to have, but still problems nonetheless.
Yeah, and that is part of the Super League strategy of doing playing the fall to spring schedule, is to try and avoid some of that. That's strategic. It's not. That's strategic to limit that. If we're in that situation, 20 bucks as much as we want our best player playing in every match, that's a good problem to have. And if they are playing for our national team, that's a great thing. So they're representing the country. So that's something we'll have to deal with. Hopefully that's a problem we have to deal with down the road. But that is one reason we were okay on the women's side of going to that fall to spring schedule. We'd be less comfortable, on the men's side doing that.
Cool. Any other questions for Connor, guys? Trev's got one.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Gotcha.
So I don't know if you know this, Connor. Mitch and I did, well, obviously, Mitch and I did the broadcast for the Open Cup a few, what was that, months ago now?
That was a month ago.
Yeah, time is relevant and does not exist. But the reason Mitch asked me to help out is because when I was in college, I worked as a camera broadcaster, camera person, and associate producer for ESPN Plus for my university.
Oh, nice.
I was part of a transition at my university. When I started in 2013, Abilene Christian University had just announced that they were going to Division I. And 4 years afterward, when they finally passed the probationary period, ESPN came to us and said, all right, you have to change some things. You've got to, your basketball court is too light. You don't have the proper fiber optic cables in order to process the stuff quickly enough for us. Your lights aren't the right shade, and you don't have a TV room to go to the stadium. So all of that costs a lot of money. I know that you have talked about improving Bree Stevens before this. How much of those improvements are going towards specifically to meet standards for professional women's soccer, and how many of them are just, we need to update the stadium because it hasn't been updated in 50 or so years?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. The focus in the large improvements are checking those boxes necessary to get sanctioning as a Division I club. With that, in the process of making those improvements, there are going to be some things that need to be altered that are required to support a Division I club. It may not be required to get a Division I club, but you can't really operate a Division I club unless you have proper lighting, proper turf, proper camera stands for television as a Division I club. So there's going to be some of that as well. But the focus as we get out of the gates here really is those things needed to make sure we qualify for sanctioning and check those boxes.
All right.
So one more thing while we have you on the line, Trev. How good does it feel after this NCFC game to have seen Cello play as well as he did?
I'm going to pat myself on the back because I said this was going to happen in the last stream. I told you, like, he keeps getting chances. He has the ability to get assists. He has the ability to score goals, and it's going to happen. I didn't expect it to happen in like 2 games, but I knew that once he got those right opportunities, it was going to happen. And a goal and an assist off of a set piece, not just a set piece, a corner, is kind of a really good way to I won't say introduce yourself to the league because he's been around for a while, but definitely this season it was kind of his coming out party, at least in a more vernacular way with his like voice and emotion. You could really see how much he enjoyed doing that. He is now, I don't know if you guys know this, the #1 player on FOTMob for USL 1.
We are very well aware.
I don't know if, I told you I haven't been listening for the last 50 minutes, but
Trevor, I'm the one who told you that. Of course we know that.
No, but he had it.
I swear, this guy doesn't watch. This guy doesn't care about soccer. He hears me say, "Oh yeah, he's high rated and he's already his favorite player." He's just like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna break out soon." Of course you're saying this. Come on.
Yeah,
you know what, Connor?
He's also a Texas boy.
Trev, if you have some time tomorrow, I'd really want to pick your brain on what we should be doing with the club. So
that's what I'm saying.
Like an expert.
Yeah,
he's
Connor,
a man.
So we have you do some statistical analysis for us.
For a guy that Mitch describes as doesn't pay attention, that sounds like a perfect USL 1 scout candidate.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say referee, but I'm probably going to get
either or.
I would give too many red cards to be a referee in this league.
Connor, any sort of closing comments that you would like to make? We thank you so much for your time, by the way. I know it's been a busy day for you. And we just, thanks for stopping by and having a chat with us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. Appreciate your continued support. And why we're doing this is it's because our fans have been so great. And we think this is something that they're hungry for and want to see happen in our great city. And so we're just excited to kind of start this journey and make sure the fans are engaged along the way. And, want to make sure we do this in a way that only builds what we've built it forward, that doesn't do anything to diminish from that, and kind of as a community strengthen the overall soccer community. So appreciate everybody's interest today. The buzz, the feedback, the calls, everything we've seen so far has been overwhelmingly positive, and just I think surprised us how engaged people are. And let's kind of keep working on this together. And last thing I'll say is I do want to thank the mayor today and her staff for their support, their interest. She has been great and supportive and a true leader in this project, a visionary with how we should kind of go about this. And so she's been great, and we're excited to work with her and her staff and the city to get this figured out.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Connor, for joining us. And
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks.
We'll see you soon, hopefully.